Hi folks, welcome to Exercise of the Month for Conan Fitness. This time we're reviewing another stretch. This time it's a hip flexor stretch. So very common stretch, very common area needed to stretch hip flexor. It involves things around spine and low back and pelvis, so anything around that area is really important. Needs to be stretched quite often, so here's a fantastic stretch for you how to do it, and some ways to intensify the stretch and stretch different areas around the hip and pelvis. So let's have a look at a hip flexor stretch. So if I invite Mitchell to get into position here, what we're going to use any bench or wall. You can pop your foot up on a bench, foot up on a wall, even a ball of some sort or a step. So from here, all he's going to do is put one leg straight up on the bench. At the moment, his hands are both on the floor, kind of like a sprinting stance. And that's just the starting position. To get set up correctly, what I'm going to invite him to do is to get this stretching leg, the right knee, and push it as far under the bench as he can, or as far under the wall as he can. The further back that is, the more intense the stretch will be. So if it's too much, then obviously don't go too far. The next thing we do is push the left leg, the one that's just being supported, right out as far as you can get it. And sometimes getting into the position is probably the hardest, but once you're in, the stretch is very easy. From here, is that stretching at all? What we're aiming to do is stretch the hip flexor, which comes right from the top of the leg onto the spine is where it attaches. So it's basically attaching to the front of Mitchell's spine. So that muscle runs right up through his belly, through the thick of the visceral organs of his belly. Is that stretching?
Yeah, about a 7.
Okay, so again folks, we're aiming for about 6, 7 or 8 out of 10. Certainly not the 9 out of 10 intensity of stretch. It's just too much for a muscle. It'll pull. So from here, that's probably stretching enough. What I would invite him to do is just to wait there a little bit. It's under a stretch already, until that stretch just gently loosens off and the intensity of the stretch backs off. If it's too much, he can always push his hips back. But in a moment, to increase the stretch, I'm going to invite him to put, you don't have to do it yet, Mitchell, but we're going to push the hips forward, kind of like we're driving the hips towards the ground, if that makes sense. The first thing you need to do though is keep it all in line. So if you bring your right hip towards me a bit, yes, that looks straighter. That looks you're dead straight now, like in a sprinting stance. Now let's see how much that's loosened off. See if you can push your hips towards the ground a little. Yes, fantastic. Did that increase the stretch? I bet it would have. So perfect for now. Again, just gently relax into it. You don't want your muscles turned on. You want to try and relax so it's just passive. That means the muscles are just gently letting go. Again, I would wait. This may take 2, 3, 4 minutes before that intensity of the stretch eases off. When it does, you can either go again, meaning try to relax a little more, try further, or instead of doing that, keep it back there, Mitchell. And this time, just pull the hips towards me and rotate that right hip forward. So you're just pushing, it's almost like you're rotating into the stretch, and you'll feel that stretch in a slightly different part of the hip flexor, a different part of the hip. So it's really good to try and hit it from all of those angles. How's that stretch feeling?
Yeah, it's up there.
Pretty good. Hold that just for a few more seconds, and then what we'll get you to do is go back to straight and see if you can go a little further down. So see if you can now stretch out a little further, pushing the hips towards the floor, as in keep it straight. That's it, and just push straight towards the floor now. Yep, and that's definitely opened out a bit as far as angle goes. So is that pretty intense?
Yeah.
What would you give it out of 10? 8, yeah, so that's plenty. That's plenty. Wouldn't go to 9. Now from there folks, again, I'd leave it until the intensity of the stretch has backed off a bit, and then I'd be happy with the stretch. I'd move on to the next one. And the next variation is staying exactly where Mitchell is, knee in the same position, front leg in the same position. Now we're going to stand the upper body up. So if you just walk your hands backwards, you can use your knee as leverage. If you need a bit of balance, you can grab the wall behind you, or that pole behind you if you need a bit of balance. Some people grab a step. Is that a bit intense? Yep. If this is what we're going to do, folks, is stand up so that we lengthen out the rectus femoris, basically the rectus femoris, which is the muscle that runs right down the front of the leg. Again, very important in pelvis. And that may be too intense. So in that case, mate, just let the knee come forward a bit. Your knee come forward just a little. Yep. And that will back off the stretch a bit if it's too intense. So from there, what we're aiming to do is stand up in the body as tall as you can go, pushing the bum back towards the heel, because that's when the stretch is really going to kick in, and being aware of one thing, and that is that we don't get too much of an accentuated arch in the lower back, as that's what the hip will do if it's too tight. So does that feel okay on low back?
Yeah, it's fine.
It's just feeling at the front of the leg? Yeah. And that's a fantastic stretch, guys. Again, you'd leave it there. If you were to do this every day or do it regularly, you'd notice that it would just loosen out more and more until you're basically leaning up against the wall for a very effective stretch throughout the hip, front of the thigh, the quad, and hip flexor. Give it a shot. Obviously you do it with the other side to even it up. That's an effective stretch. Good luck.